We're excited to talk to you about a lot of different subjects we don't really get to talk a lot about, including personal development, including success. What is success, the definition of success, and what your vision for success is, and information technology and where it's all going.
The coaching company will probably be one of the biggest game changers in the industry, because I believe the relationship between a coach and a client and a coach is probably one of the primary drivers of greatness in business. I think people think that we have to do it ourselves. We don't, we can't see our own blind sides. And I think coaching is being, I'm going to use a word, I don't know if this is cursing, and I usually don't like to, but bastardized. I'm going to say it's been bastardized in the sense that it is a shell of what it was intended to be. There's some great coaching companies, but we intended to build and have built a certification and all that. That'll be a big deal. We're doing a lot with the success space because for me, business is changing and co-working is becoming a reality.
All right, welcome to the episode with Top Real Estate Influencers Podcast. We have Don Hobbs here, special guest. I heard about Don a long time ago from a lot of our clients that used to actually use your services, and they got their branding. They first heard about branding in general. I think you're, one of the early innovators in the industry. And I think a lot of people know what you're up to now, and maybe not everybody knows what you began with. And we're here with Mario Hurley as well, co-producer of this podcast. We're excited to talk to you about a lot of different subjects we don't really get to talk a lot about, including personal development, including success. What is success, the definition of success, and what your vision for success is, and information technology and where it's all going. So I'd love to just start with, how did you get into real estate?
Well, first of all, hi guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate that. It's nice to be here with both of you and Alex. Mario, as you know, Alex and I got to meet, I don't know, 3 years ago, something like that. We get to hang out on the same stage in Vegas, if I remember correctly. Alex,
absolutely.
That may be true. So it's really a pleasure to be with you guys today, and thanks for bringing me on. And I love to have these kinds of conversations where we can really impact people. And I think the real estate business is a phenomenal business where I've hung out for the last 40 years, and I love lighting agents up and watching their eyes, light up and giving them everything we can. So. The question you asked me, I lost my way just thinking about all the stuff that I wanted to say. Tell me again.
Just how did you get into real estate?
Oh, shoot. I never got into real estate. So here's what happened. I started my career with Jim Rohn. I actually was just a kid, 18 years old. I show up at this big program. Jim Rohn, some of you will know who he is. If you don't, look him up. He's very findable on YouTube and very quotable by almost every speaker in the world. And so I got a chance to watch his stuff. I was a kid at 18. It was date night. I didn't want to be there, and I found it incredible and took, so many copious notes. And at the break, I walked up and told him how awesome I thought he was and how I wanted to be at everything he did. And I became a groupie, and eventually ended up at a 50-person leadership program at his ranch in Northern California, and really got to know him well. And then I said, I want to work for you. So at 18 years old, I went to work for him. That was quite an adventure. And then 3 months later, this big gawky kid named Tony Robbins came along. So we both got to hang out in Jim's company for about 5 years together, and competing in sales management, all that stuff, built a company. And then eventually Tony went off to go do some small thing he did, and firewalking and crazy stuff. And then we built Jim Rohn's company. I became the president. And then we went on from there to, when I left there, I started this company you were talking about, Alex, which is this was Hobbs Herder Advertising. And we were the only game in town. We weren't just, kind of the early leaders. There was nothing about marketing in the real estate space. And it was really interesting because we were doing a program, partially personal development, time management, all the normal real estate, salesy stuff. And we had this little section that long, like 30 minutes long, on personal branding and marketing. And at the time, it was where the small little moms and pops were consolidating in franchises. And so Century 21 was big, and Remax was coming out, and they were getting big. And And everybody was going with those brands and saying, and I'm with Remax and I'm with Century 21, and we're wearing gold coats and all that stuff. And we came along and said, no, whatever you do, don't do that. That's stupid, right? I mean, why would you have them calling the company when they could be calling and asking for you? And so we began all the personal branding and marketing, and there was nothing. I mean, people were going, now that's a subject we never heard. So we kept expanding the 30 minutes into an hour and a half, 3 hours, 5 hours, all day, 2 days, 3 days. Eventually it turned into just a monster. And we put 1.6 million people through our programs over the years. And we were doing about 50,000 people a year, every year, coming and learning how to build a business where it wasn't dependent on just picking up the phone and calling people. It was really about people calling them and saying, hey, we see your stuff all the time. Come and list our property. And it really was a game changer. A funny story, you and I know we all hang out with, at the Inman conferences and stuff. And I was there a couple of years ago, right before COVID. And we were all too early. The app was wrong, and we showed up at this room too early. And what do you do? So I sat down. I said, "Can I sit here?" These guys started talking, and we were all introducing ourselves. And when I talked to the one guy, he said, "Yeah, I went to your program way back when." And the other guys didn't hear it was me. He heard Hobbs Herder. He goes, "Hobbs Herder, let me tell you about those guys. They were amazing." So for about 20 minutes, he's telling me about me. And then when we finished the conversation, he stood up and he was going to leave, and he said, "So what was your name again?" And so it was really funny because he goes, "We hated those guys because they were Century 21 and we were telling people not to do that."
Yeah.
And yet in the end, he said, you guys helped change the industry entirely. What we do today is largely a function of what you and your partner helped, create in the business. So we were very fortunate to do that. I got a chance after I retired to play with Gary Keller. He wrote a book called The One Thing. And that was a fun thing. And then of course, Glenn Sanford and EXP bought Success. And it was a real awesome invitation to think that I got to go play in the Success space, which is now a 124-year-old iconic property. And so that was quite an honor. So I've just, my life has been blessed, and it's all revolved around personal development and real estate. That was a long answer to a simple question.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'll share the story of how I heard about you. Is I went into a real estate office and I'm talking about digital branding across all the platforms.
Yeah.
And this woman, Linda, she goes, "Yeah, I think I have the brochure here somewhere." But she's like, "It's kind of like what Hobbs Herder used to do. Like they were telling us, brand yourself, brand yourself, brand yourself." And she goes and she finds this box in her office and she pulls out the brochure. She opens it up and she's like, "This is what launched me in my community." She's like, "I have this brochure. This is really what launched me, made me unique in the industry, because everybody else was just going, like you're saying, gold jackets, Remax, whatever." And she's like, "No, look at me."
Yeah.
Right. And that's when I was like, I need to go check out who, all about Hobbs Herder. And then it just so happens that we met at that event in Las Vegas. And I was like, oh, perfect. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Alex. It's kind of fun to have those roots. And I will say I'm still as passionate about that part of the business. I mean, clearly I've been passionate about realtors forever, but that particular thing is where people really shine. And many times, in social media where you guys are hanging out, which is just, it's where things are today. But I think the biggest thing is we lose sight of the fact that people have to make a choice, and it's not about the house. And we keep trying to make it about the house. It's not about the house. It's about the relationship. And I'll help you find any house. I'll help sell your house. I'll help you do whatever you do in real estate, but you got to find the relationship first. And I think that people they've missed the plot completely. And, today it's, instead of newspaper ads and magazine ads, it's Zillow ads and online ads. And it's the same BS that it was before. It's still not what they should be doing yet. That's not the way they think. So Don, I love what you guys are doing.
Well, Don, exactly. And I do want to get a little deeper into what we are doing and share with you part of our vision. And then we're curious about what your vision is like the next 3, 5, 10, 20, 30 years. But I wanted to go back to what you shared earlier, because I'm actually a big fan of personal development. I train folks. I'm a part of Real Greater, and we're part of this whole culture we're creating that's all about not so much the work that we do 9 to 5 or whatever, but more about making those connections and having the workplace be a place where you grow, you expand, you practice with your own teammates, with your own community, and then you actually take that to your families, to your homes, to whatever is next on your life. So I wanted to ask you, when you first started and you got exposed to Jim Rohn, I mean, Jim Rohn is extremely influential. And Tony Robbins, because Tony Robbins then, grew his huge company in personal development. What was it like for you? Like like how much did that impact you, and how much of that, did you use in everything you did after?
It was everything in changing me. I never came from anything like that. I mean, it was funny. My mom bought this ticket for me. I had just bought a condo and moved away. I was 18 and moved away. And she called me one night and said, I went to this guy's seminar and he reminds me of you, which is really ironic because I'm not sure how that's possible. Because I was thinking about this the other day. I was actually describing this. I go, I don't remember being that guy. I remember being friendly and nice and people like me. And I must've been upbeat, I'm sure. I don't remember me as a kid being like that, but I do know I succeeded in sports. I mean, I loved sports and I was a champion and whatever.
What did you play?
But it was baseball, football, and basketball. And then I was a trap shooter, professional trap shooter, had a job as the pro at the trap and skeet range. And so I was, I did a lot of things like that. But what was interesting was I came from the tough side of town, and I didn't come from, like when I walked into his program, and this was at the West and South Coast Plaza in Costa Mesa, California. And I walked in, I'd never been in a room like that with chandeliers and, 1,000 people dressed in business clothes and stuff. I didn't have a clue. This was so far from my world. And so it became everything. And when Rohn said, work harder on you than you do on your job. I mean, I quote him every day. He's a part of my life every day. I think in his thoughts, I mean, it was everything, Mario. To me, he was, I spent 8 years with him, and we were friends until the day he passed. And so, I was involved in his family and his life, and was at the private funeral and all that. I mean, this man was enormously influential in my life, but the lessons that he taught me were a huge part of everything I did in my business dealings, in starting Hobbs Herder. I mean, we didn't share the stage with anybody. Alex, you and I shared a joint stage. We didn't bring anybody in. We brought in Andy Andrews one time. If you've never seen him, he's great. And we brought in Jim Rohn, and that was the only other speaker we let in. And we had Jim there 2 or 3 times with us. We didn't let anybody on our stage, but Rohn was obviously a different level. And, he had such wisdom, and he was so thoughtful. They called him America's foremost business philosopher. And I'm not even sure what that means, but the reality is, he wasn't talking about the numbers. He was talking about the thinking behind the business. He was thinking about the heart that drives the business. He was thinking about the discipline that creates the actions which create the results that you want. He was all about the inner. And, you don't change anything out there. It's impossible, but you can change this and it changes everything, right? Or the relationships that we have. And so for me, that became my mantra and my life, really. And to this day, that's why the success thing was so cool, right? When I got a chance to play in that space, because that stuff is, anyway, we should talk about that, because that's really something special too, right?
Would love to hear about that. Like, you tell us about it. Like, how did this happen? How did you decide to, go forward with that, become the president, and what's your vision now with Success Magazine?
Well, and so
hold on, I want to interrupt just for a second, because I just got like tingly and even teary-eyed just having this conversation, because it's like Mario and I are bringing this to our company, and we're the crazy ones. Like, we're literally the crazy ones. I don't know if you've ever been referred to as the crazy one, but it's like, and I actually got present to, that's okay. Like ClickFunnels says, you're part of the crazy 1%. You know what? I get it now. And that's okay. And I'm okay to blaze the trail or whatever it takes, because sometimes you got to do that. But it's like, you got to expose to that so early. I actually got exposed to it only in 39, 40 years old. Right. And I can already see the change, like through Landmark and different personal development programs, through Tony Robbins. And it's like, that's been everything for me. Right. So I hear you with everything. And I'm sure Mario, and it's like, it's such like a wow factor. And it's like, you kind of want to give it to everybody, but you can't give it to everybody, because that doesn't work either.
Because they're not ready for it. They're not in that place. Right.
Right.
Oh,
geez. So yeah, I just had to tap into that.
That's really cool, Alex. That's
you
really
want to
cool.
hear something funny? This is how crazy we sound. We were just meeting that's just a couple of weeks with our team, and we said, so yeah, we should definitely do a meeting once a week so we could all share, get connected, and start really developing. And somebody said, and I'll imitate him a little bit. He said, what you're asking me is to join your church. I don't go to church. I don't believe in God. So it sounded to them like so out there that it's just so far from reality for them. And yet we know this is the juice right here. Without this, it doesn't matter what you're doing out here.
This is the juice. You're so right. Yeah. So let me jump because I'm 18, 19, 20 years old, Rohn's company. What magazine is our business Bible? Success Magazine. Comes once a month in the mail, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember Tony and I and the other leaders, we'd be like, I got mine today. It's like, that was such a big deal. So when, all these years later, 40 plus years later, EXP, Glenn Sanford bought Success Magazine. And Glenn called me one night and said, hey, seems like it'd be a cool thing for us to do. I mean, you kind of have this background, this is your thing. And, if you think about it, that publication started in 1897. So it's 124 years old. Now you want to talk about, Alex, the early day stuff and where change all started. They called it New Thought. You want to talk about mystical stuff? New Thought. That's what they called it.
Wow.
So personal development wasn't personal development. It wasn't mainstream. It was almost mystical stuff. It was the alchemy things. It was really spooky stuff.
Yeah.
And yet today the world has evolved and changed and all of that. So no, I love it when you guys are excited about that. I mean, let's talk about that all day long. That is the juice for sure. But anyway, it's really been an honor. So what happened recently is we were going through a lot of change in our world, and I stepped out of Success in the sense that I'm still going to be an ambassador for. I'm still kind of a face of. I speak on behalf of. But the day-to-day operations, I'm completely out. So that part, I spent a year doing that. We lifted off a coaching company, which has turned out phenomenal. We lifted up a speakers bureau, which we're really proud of. We've lifted up a franchise system, which is a Success Space is what it's called. And it's a virtual, no, it's not a virtual, it's a co-work space. And in the front of it, like we have this co-work space, in the front of it is like a Starbucks, a coffee shop called Success Space. And Success Space has a Success Cafe in front. So that's been lifted off. Now there's franchises being sold. So that's starting to move out. So all that was done in the last year. And so I feel really good about like, okay, we did a lot of stuff. I got to go back to work. I got to go, build a company and do some more things on the real estate side. So that's what we're doing now. And again, I think Success is an amazing publication, amazing tools and things. And if you're a coach, please get in touch with me because we got some cool stuff. We are going to revolutionize the whole coaching industry from the way I see it, because I think that industry needs licenses and it needs things that requires that somebody actually knows what they're doing before they call themselves a coach. It's kind of the wild, wild west, and it needs to change. I mean, we need to change for the benefit of all. So anyway, I'll stop.
Let me ask you a question on that subject. So you're not actively in the company with Success Magazine, correct?
Yeah. So I work on the coaching side all the time. I'm constantly bringing the coaching company up, and I speak like I'm speaking. I spoke yesterday. I'm speaking next week. I'm speaking all the time for Success. So I'm part of the Success team for sure. It's be more like a figurehead.
And do you know?
It's this pretty face.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty face. Can you share with us what's the vision? Like do they have a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year vision? What's going to happen with Success Magazine?
Yeah, a lot's going to happen there. The coaching company will probably be one of the biggest game changers in the industry, because I believe the relationship between a coach and a client and a coach is probably one of the primary drivers of greatness in business. I think people think that we have to do it ourselves. We don't. We can't see our own blind sides. And I think coaching is being, I'm going to use a word, I don't know if this is cursing, and I usually don't like to, but bastardized. I'm going to say it's been bastardized in the sense that it is a shell of what it was intended to be. And there are some great coaches, don't get me wrong. There's some great coaching companies, but we intended to build and have built a certification and all that. That'll be a big deal. There's a community that's about to get built. Of course, the magazine is shifting and changing to a younger demographic. Obviously, the millennials and this younger generation of business people are coming, and we want to be able to answer that. We're doing a lot with the success space because for me, business is changing and co-working is becoming a reality. I mean, if we look at what happened with COVID, the fact is people got out of going to offices. And so if we need an office, it may not be the corporations got the office anymore. Maybe that a lot of corporations are paying their employees for a space for them to go into a co-work space that's closer to home than having to drive to the office, right? I mean, all this stuff makes sense, and the industry is changing. And by the way, the real estate game is going to change because we don't have to live in the big city anymore. I'm living in Puerto Rico and able to do business in every way that we do business in every place. And it's all done through, in essence, a virtual space or a co-work space. So I think that's going to be a big part of where success goes. And of course, we're excited about the podcast network, which we'd love to have you guys look at that when we get that lifted. We'd love to have you, talk to us about that. I want to, really want to create a network of the coolest people in the whole world for delivering great content, and having, people like you be able to deliver through a podcast network that really connects people and takes out great quality content to listeners. And again, personal development is the foundation for success. So the website's changing, everything's changing. I mean, we took a 124-year-old magazine, and I remember the board of directors wasn't too wild about buying a magazine. Like, who's buying magazines these days? And the good news is Glenn had a great vision for it, and I was able to contribute in that way to say, it's not a magazine, it's a brand that represents the iconic nature of personal development. And the only two brands I can think of that are that iconic would be Think and Grow Rich and Success, period. I mean, those are the two foundational pieces of almost everything that comes in the personal growth world. So
that's great. Can I ask you more about the relationship between, well, first of all, let me ask you one question, then a follow-up question. My first question is, how would you define success for your average 20-year-old entrepreneur / real estate agent? How would you define success for a 30-year-old, and a 40-year-old? And then my follow-up question would be, what is the relationship between being motivated, having personal development, and being a successful agent?
Okay, let's hold that for a second. I think the easy way out for me on the 20-year-old, 30-year-old, and 40-year-old is this. I'm going to say that I think no matter what, I think success should be defined not by somebody else's standards, but success is getting what I want to happen, meaning what do I want my life to look like? Now, what's interesting about your question is, at 20, what do I think is important? At 30, what do I think is important? And at 40, what do I think is important, right? So that's, and at 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, right? And we're going to be living much longer. So no, I think that's a great twist to it. The reality though, Mario, is that we have to be conscious of, how do I see life? And of course, the biggest challenge is we see life through the filters of what has and hasn't worked. We see life future through the past. Figure out how that works, right? I'm driving forward in the car, looking in the rearview mirror. That isn't a good way to go through life, but that's where we do it, right? We go based on what I know, based on how life is, which is the only thing I'm aware of, right? How my life is, based on how it is, here's what I want, instead of here's all the possibilities. Yeah. And I believe we were born into greatness, and then we learned all the other fear and stuff that goes on top of that, right? We were born into perfection. I mean, God didn't make no junk. He put us in a place, or she put us in a place, whatever you believe, put us in a place to be great and to have abundance, and all of it should be easier and luxurious and fulfilling and wonderful. And then we learn, don't get in the tree because you're going to fall down. Don't do that because you're going to hurt yourself. Don't, we learn through society, through family, through parents, through whatever. We learn fear, and everything else is then just a squashing of the energy that we were born with. So I think at 20, we haven't lost too much of it. The challenge right now that I see, and again, this is pretty philosophical, but I see that we're looking at a generation that's not connecting in the same ways. So I'm not sure what, the society starts looking like when connection is through, electronics and it's not face to face. I mean, even what you guys are doing with social media, it's a great thing. I always say advertising today is so much cheaper, so much easier. I mean, blowing something up and making something bigger today is much easier than it was back in 2000 or 1990 or 1980.
Yeah.
And when do we connect with the human beings? I mean, I love this conversation, but even that's on Zoom. We're not together. We're not in a room. But here's the good news. We don't have to be, right? But we still need connection. We still need the skills. We still need the relationships. We still need that. And I'm not sure that that some of the newer generations, these next generations, are really mastering that. Now, what I have a lot of faith in is, if I go back to the 70s, it was the era, or the 60s and 70s, and you think it was the era of love and drugs, and the 80s, and it's like, and look, we've made it through all of that, and we became adults, and we became a society, and we became what we are today. Because eventually, when we grow up to some place, we start making choices. The challenge, and this is one of the personal development foundations, right? Are you making choices out of fear? Or are you making choices out of abundance, possibility, love, gratitude? Are you making choices out of that? Are you making choices out of, I don't think I can, limitation, there's not enough time, are you making it that way? So, it's going to be an interesting thing. And that definition of success, though, for me, reigns true no matter what age. It's about getting what I want, what you want for you, for your life, for your family, for the things that you've chosen. It's your value set. It's really all about how you see life. And we get to make those choices, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's really no wrong. It's just a path, right? It's just one path is long and rocky. One path is easier. And there's many paths, right? So then the question is, which one are you taking? So I don't think there's one single definition, and I certainly wouldn't impose mine on anybody else. I do like, what Tony Robbins kind of came up with, something, or somebody came up with, and that is doing what you want, when you want, with whomever you want, as many times as you want, as much as you want, whenever you want. There's an element of that. I'm sure I'm not nailing it exactly right, but the bottom line is doing whatever I darn well want to. Yes, again, not pushing anybody else's boundaries and not hurting anybody else, but living in the abundance of life was meant to be lived. And I think we have a chance to do that. So now you had another question. I have no idea what it was.
My follow-up question is, and the reason why I asked you is because we're actually doing our web trainings several times a week. Yeah. And we do encounter the young agents and the ones that have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years. And we do see the difference. The ones that are young, we see them that they are more like, well, I'm just going to go for it. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I know that I'm good with Instagram and I'm very comfortable with my phone, but these guys, they seem to know so many things about real estate that I have no idea, but I'm just going to go for it. And so it almost seems to me that they're setting themselves up for a lot of surprises. Like they don't have what you're saying, that connection or that substance that the older folks, they kind of learn to work their way through and like to build themselves over time. And they had mentorships and things of that sort that seems to be missing for the young ones. I don't know if you've seen the same.
It does. Yeah, it does. Go ahead, Alex.
As you were saying that, it's like I felt it and I feel it. It's like this, it's kind of like spraying all of social media. They're spraying all of social media while the veterans are just so direct and creating connections with people. It's like, they'll be like, I'll take a conversation at the coffee shop any day over 30 posts on social media, because I will connect with that person and I'll be their realtor for life. And the younger generation, they're like, I'm going to spray 30,000 followers on social media, and maybe one stranger will decide to buy a house with me. And then I don't even know if they'll still be my client after that, but that works.
Let me see if I can bring both those things together, because here's an interesting twist. So here we are teaching personal branding and marketing. We're doing programs. People are there. And Alex, a lot of them spend a lot of money with us, right? Building their systems and their, marketing materials. So what do you think the biggest challenge was for us at that time? Selling them. I mean, getting the money was part of it. But what do you think was the biggest challenge? Because many of them would give us the money and then not follow through. So what was the issue?
Lack of focus?
Nope. Fear of being seen, fear of showing up in the world, fear of like being bigger, owning it, and showing up, right? Which now translates into, I don't do video, I don't do social media, I don't do. So, and of course, then there was the other side. And I would say to somebody, you know, think about realtors that you know that aren't as good as you are, but they know everybody, or everybody knows them, and they're doing large scale business, or they're really not even good at the business, but they're doing lots of it because everybody knows them in town, right? They've got signage all over, they've got postcards of whatever it was they were doing to get big, they've got it all over. And so what's really more important, what we know, or who knows us, and how big we are in the minds of the consumers, right? That's what brand is all about.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look and say, you know, it's really interesting because here's this person who's great at splashing themselves out in the world. And yet, if we can focus their energy, they're going to be huge. I think we're going to see people doing business. In fact, you know, the Ryan Serhant, some of the people that are out there right now, that younger generation, that 30, 40 something, not the 60, 70 something, not the 50, 60 something, right? That 30, 40 something, I think they're going to kill it. And I think because they don't have some of the same fears, now they just need focus and training. That was the word you used, Mario, is the focus, right? So I think there's a blending of all that. And I think that it's the talent meets the willingness to put myself out there, because it's required. You can't build a business and be a secret agent. Not in real estate, you can't. You know, I mean, you want to be an FBI or, you know, whatever, a CIA, it's great to be a secret agent, but you cannot be in this business that secret agent and expect results. So for me, I'd rather fault, you know, we used to laugh, and this was always behind the scenes conversation, but since I don't have the company anymore, I can say this stuff, you know, and that was, we'd be like, what's their problem? What are they dealing with, that company? And I'd say, I don't know, but I know the answer is marketing, right? And I don't care if it was a recruiting issue, it was a marketing thing. If it was a retention issue, it was a marketing thing. If it was not enough business, it was a marketing thing. If it was, you know, whatever it was, recruiting, anything was about marketing. Marketing makes the world go round, guys. I mean, you know that, you're right there with me. You know that marketing is what people see. We don't know you. We just think we know you. We feel like we know you. We feel connected to you. And when that happens, you win. And it's never about who knows the most, because we don't find out if you're a complete bozo or a great agent until after we've selected you. So what agents need to take away from maybe this, but from any training, is how do I build my brand such that people recognize me, call me, know me, trust me, like me, you know, and I'm the choice for them. And we can do that. We can do that. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer, but I think that's probably where I see the challenge for that younger generation, but it's also the challenge I see for the older generation.
So would you say for an agent, because like I'm telling you, we speak to new agents every day, and we're telling them it's all about building yourself as the authority. You want people to go and search for you and be impressed, have a positive feeling about it. But in terms of being successful, like actually having the transactions and converting all that work, what else would you say they need to have in place to be successful, being young or in between, you know, whatever age?
I think the biggest thing, we had a clubhouse class room today, as we do every day, Monday through Friday. And today it was on efficiency. And one of the things I said was, I don't think people recognize, and sometimes maybe until they're older, how important time is. And so they're going to have to learn the use of time. You know, it's interesting. For many of us, we've done the exercise where, you know, you figure out your salary and then how much money you made, whether salary or independent contractor, right? When I made 100 grand last year, and then you divide it out and go, and I work 60 hours a week, and you divide that out and figure out that you're making, you know, whatever, $42 an hour. Okay, now what do you want to make this year? Well, I really want to make 250. I want to make 400. I want to make $1 million. I want to make $1 million. Well, that's cool, but do you understand at $1 million, you're going to be worth like $500 an hour. So now my question is, how are you treating your hours? Because you're worth $500 an hour. So every day that you're doing assistance work, you are your assistant, and you're doing $15 or $20 an hour activities, only you're trying to make $500 an hour. So I think what people really need to understand is time is precious. And the one thing I've come to know through the billionaires that I've been able to hang out with, and Tony's not quite a billionaire, but he's rapidly approaching, and Glenn Sanford, I mean, Gary Keller is rich anyway. I don't know how much, but they're very protective of their time. They're extremely good at creating boundaries and knowing the value of their time, and they don't let people steal it from them. They don't give it up easily. They're very conscious with what they do with it. And I think for most of us, we're so busy responding, attempting, flailing to get business that we're doing so many things instead of focusing, saying, here's the few things that really matter. I was watching football last week, and I'm watching all these lateral passes, and they turn sideways, pass the ball 20 yards, but it goes 2 yards in front, right? And I'm like, what's the point? It's like 2 yards. Pass the 20-yard pass that way. Go that way. That's the goal over there.
Yeah.
Right. So I think for a lot of them, they're going to have to learn that lesson, and time is precious. And when they start taking over, and I just talked to a guy, literally the guy that I was on the phone with, and the people we were on the phone with it before you. And this guy said, there's only so many hours in the day. And I said, you're already misusing so many hours that you could get wealthy with. I mean, you're abusing totally your lifetime. And we just wrote a program today that we're delivering tomorrow for a group. And one of the things we put in it was, it's really about paying attention to the time of your life. And I know that's an old phrase, but it's the time of your life. It's really protecting the time of your life, investing in the time of your life. We can't get any more hours. I can make tons more money. Money's not an issue. Money can be found and made and created, but time cannot be. So we have to get really smart with that. And then I think there's marketing. Marketing is always foundational. I believe if a business in real estate isn't marketing founded, based in marketing, it's not a business. It's a career. It's a job. There's nothing wrong with it. You can pound the phones and make calls and do all that stuff forever. I don't think that's a business. I think a business, Taco Bell doesn't call me and say, hey, come by and have a nacho taco. Nike doesn't call and say, hey, we saw you running those awful shoes, come and buy a pair. But when I walk in, I'm predisposed. Marketing is what makes all that happen. And I think marketing is foundational to great success, because marketing is leverage at a very high level that even when I'm not working, when I'm on vacation, my marketing is working for me. Everything is working to bring people my direction. And when we get that leverage of them coming this way instead of me going out that way, we've just doubled, tripled, quadrupled our income. So I think those are all factors. I'm not sure if that's
you're talking to me all day long about time management. I abuse my time. I'll be the first to admit it. And it's and as I'm listening to you, I'm also looking at where's that coming from? And it's really coming from me wanting to be nice and be like a people pleaser. It's like I don't want to tell somebody you can't have my time, because I don't want to be like a jerk, about my time. Oh, you don't have any time for me. It's but I really don't have time for you, because I'm focused on something really big right now that's for me, my family, my team. I need to get this done. It's and Mario's great at guarding my time as well. He's like, why are you doing that? That's not your job. But the other thing I look at when I talk about my time is I now take Mondays as my day to plan, right? And I focus on the big strategy stuff, so that the rest of the week, I'm not just doing stuff, I'm actually doing stuff that fulfills on my plan. And I think that's, time management and planning kind of go hand in hand, because otherwise, what are you going to spend your time on? I don't know. I just wake up and do it all day. No, I got to be a little more strategic and careful about it.
Yeah. I think Rohn had some pretty easy stuff on that. Was always plan your day the night before, always plan your week, the weekend before, or my favorite is on Friday, so I can have the weekend to myself, not be thinking about business. Some people, it's Sunday night, getting into gear for next week. But I think it kicks me into business gear on Sunday, which is kind of my time. So, and then the other thing I'll give you, another thing, Alex, that would probably help you a lot. It was a lesson I learned, and I paid such big money for it. I paid such big money not to do it, and then I paid such big money to learn it. And that was, I had a coach, Dr. Fred Gross, and Dr. Fred Gross taught me that work expands to fill the time we allow for its completion, and to allow a lot less time for each thing. So if I'm thinking about email, big discussion, how long does it take you? And, we were laughing this morning and said, hit select all, delete. And that's really quick. Now you just spent no time. And know that if it's important, they're going to get back to you and call, hey, I sent you an email. That's when that's when it becomes into your world, right? And of course, we don't have maybe the luxury of doing that, but how about if we just say, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on email, get through as much as I possibly can, and I'm going to have the rest of it filtered out. I have SaneBox. I think we just got a new service, but we've been using SaneBox, and it puts all my email in categories. Here's the few that I need to see. Of those, I can scan them. But again, social media, we've got text messaging. We've got so many things that come out. And how do you protect your time when everybody assumes because I sent it, he got it, and I'm expecting a call back or a text back or a something back, right? It's like, dude, you don't have that right. I have a life, and I will get back to you when it's in my life. Now, if I'm serving, that's different. But if, there's just so many people that are in our world, and we have to start making decisions about it. But here's my point, my Dr. Fred Gross story. He took me aside one day and he said, so here's the deal. Between now and next month, and we'd already established, I wanted more time off. I wanted more life. I had plenty of money. I was making gob 7 figures plus. And it was like, I need time. So he said, okay, great. So how much time? I said, I started describing. He goes, don't describe it. Put it on paper. When I come back in a month, I want you to show me exactly 3-day weekends, 4-day weekends, holidays, weeks away, 2 weeks away, vacations, whatever it is. I want to see every bit of it. And here's the thing that first occurred to me then was, if you build your personal life first and then build your business around it, it changes everything. Okay. So first thing, build the life, then the business fits, instead of build a business and then put life in wherever there's holes, right? That's how you end up having a sucky life. Yes. Okay, second part was, I came back a month later and said, this doesn't feel realistic at all. Like for me to take this much time off, fantasy, cool, awesome. How is that going to happen? Mm-hmm. And he said, work expands to fill the time we allow for completion. He said, did you ever notice how much you get done when you're going on vacation? And I go, yeah, I'm always like focused. He goes, I want you in that mode all the time. Therefore, always be planning the next thing. I'm leaving next Friday. I'm leaving next week. I'm going away Thursday. It's like always be in that mode, and you're going to be much more effective. And then the final thing was, I came back the following month and he said, okay, now I want to know where you're going in those weeks and those trips and those things. And so I went away for a month and figured it all out. And then a month later, when I came back, he said, okay, last part. I want you to go buy all the tickets, all the cruises. I want you to commit to all the guides, all the stuff. And then you're committed. Then I know where you're going to be on those days. And I think when you start to do something like that, then you start developing a life. What was fun about that, since Hobbs Herder, Greg and I increased our company revenues that next year. I took 164 days off. So the company tripled in volume and our personal incomes doubled. And that was the highest I ever earned working less than ever. I retired the next year, but I mean, that was amazing, right? Well, it was just like, oh my gosh. So I would just say to you, really, for anybody watching, and I hope that's helpful, just always be compressing time. When I made $100,000 with Rohn, he goes, good for you. Now that you know how to do that, go do it in less time, which was his idea of saying the same thing, right? Just compress time, because you know what it takes to do that stuff in less moments.
That is so counter to everything that I see. Like we use this place. We use this.
I could be wrong.
No, I think it's perfect. Every time
I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've seen it work. So no, that's gold. I mean, I'm taking that on.
Every time, like when we use this place. It's called Bureau office spaces, and everywhere it's all about working hard, putting in the extra hours. And something about it always felt kind of weird. Like, why do I want to work so much just to spend more money, but I still have to come back the next day to work, or I have an amazing, crazy weekend, but then I got to be back on Monday. It just doesn't make sense. But for you to plan the time you're going to have off, which you really treasure, like Alex and I have been talking about going to Europe like taking our whole team to Europe, and we keep on saying we'll do it when the company makes more money, when we can actually say, let's plan that. Now we are all going to be zoned in because it's going to have to happen. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, and Alice and I are building this large real estate group, and we'd love to, anybody who's interested in knowing about that, we'd love to have them contact us. But the reality is that's some of the hardest stuff to teach. And when you get that through to people, you watch their lives completely change. I mean, I've got a client right now, a coaching client who's also in our group. And this guy says, like, my life is completely different than 12 months ago because I've built it on, my relationship with my son is much better. My relationship with my wife is much better. My time off is much better. Like, I feel like I'm living. And he's making, this year, he'll make 4X over last year. So it's like, it works. It's powerful.
It is.
But people have to have the faith that it's not, I have to work longer. I have to work. By the way, what does a realtor do all those hours? They sit at their desk and they, I'm so tired. I worked my butt off. Like, doing what? What did you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many calls?
Create your life versus survive your life.
Exactly.
So before we finish our podcast, I would love to hear from you, Don. What do you see are currently like the trends? Well, where do you see specifically real estate, since that's the folks we talk to mostly? Where do you see like the trends? Like what do you see is going to happen in terms of technology, these generations coming in, all that? What do you see is going to happen to the industry?
Wow. Okay, I won't get shot for this, right? Let's see if we can make some enemies here. A couple things that are happening. First of all, let's start with the marketplace and the economy, which is inevitably going to be hit soon. And so again, you could be watching this podcast in a year and you go, well, that was true. but I think we've got somewhere in the range of 8 to 18 months max before we're going to see a pretty good dip. And I think that what's really interesting about that piece is a huge percentage of the current realtor population has never seen a market that isn't awesome. So they don't largely have any idea what to do. They've never had to service a listing for 16 weeks or 12 weeks, or, build value through time, or have people think that, that you're still working for me, that you're actually doing something in all that time, because it's been homes sold in 2 and 3 days. So the economy will be one major factor. The shift is about to change again. Secondly, I think technology, of course, is ruling the world, and people that are companies. I talked to a guy the other day who owns a company and they have almost no technology, paper. I'm like, oh, I can't even imagine how you're still in business, but that's going to go away completely. I think that the age of EXP, the age of the virtual company, the virtual space, whether it's EXP, there's a number of them. I mean, JPAR, there's a whole lot of them that are coming out. I think that model will rule. I think the franchise world will be slaughtered. I think it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, I don't mean this is like next year they're all going away, but you're seeing already less franchise sales. Franchises are leaving the franchise organizations, going independent. Of course, from independent, a lot of them are joining us at EXP. Why? Because they can have franchise systems without having to be paying a franchise fee, right? So they can get into something like that. But I think there's going to be a real move away from the traditional systems. Remax will struggle. I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to just go through every company, but they're going to struggle. Franchises are going to struggle. There's no doubt in my mind, because the question is, what are they giving in value for what they do? What's that percentage for? What is that franchise fee that I'm giving up? At one time, it made sense when we didn't have availability of all that stuff. But today we've all got the technology. I can buy everything that I need by myself. So technically speaking, everything they offer means nothing to me because I already have access to it. And I think there's going to be a mass movement. And I've always been the guy proponent of the agent being their own business. And I think we're moving into a place where there's going to be more haves at a high level and a lot more have-nots. I think that that's going to change radically. I think you're already seeing people that are doing, $400 million, $600 million in sales. You're going to have agents doing stuff that was bigger than whole companies used to think about. And that's happening because that's possible today. And they're thinking like business owners instead of thinking like, how do I sell a house? And we're going to see a lot less licenses. So I see a pretty radical shift. And of course, there's also things like Open Door and Facebook and, players like that, Zillow. Sorry, I call them the evil empire. I think they're doing things that are going to hurt the industry tremendously, at least hurt the agent tremendously. So why agents are friends of theirs. Can I say all this? You can edit out. You can edit. I'm taking my shots here, man. But I believe this. This is really what I think nobody wants to talk about, right? We're so sucked into the way it's always been, and it's just not going to be that way anymore. So if somebody wants to get serious about building a real business, this is the era for it. This is like the time when, making it. I've always said real estate, I've said this since the 90s, real estate's $1 million a year business, except for all the mistakes we make and the things we don't do, the actions we don't take and all that. That makes sense, right? It's $1 million a year business. How do we know? Because thousands of people making over $1 million a year. It's not one or two major stories. Thousands and thousands of people making over $1 million a year. So we know that's possible. Yeah. So how is it that somebody struggles and makes 25 grand? It's the same business. So we have a chance to do big. We have a chance to play small. And if we play small, we're going to be gone. And I think that'll be a large part of the business. I think the next exodus from the business will probably remain closer to the number for the future. I don't know if we're going to go back to 2 million realtors in the US or 6 million, 7 million realtors around the world. I don't know that we'll return to that.
Perfect. Alex, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know where it's going. I know a lot of things are changing, but I do want to ask one more question just because I hear you talk about this a lot. Like the coaching industry is like the wild, wild west. And, I have coaches and I believe in coaching. Okay. And of course I choose my coaches carefully. And what I want to ask you is like, what do you think is the biggest thing missing?
Well, there's been no standardization. So when I speak out, I wrote a social media post the other day about that, that there's just no regulation. So I'm unemployed or I want to start my own business. I'll be a coach. Listen, Russell Brunson, we love Russell. We're big fans of you mentioned him earlier today. So, we're big fans of all these guys, these marketers, but what they're teaching people to do is to start their own, take your mess and make it a message. Well, that's great, except how much history do you have? How much background do you have? How much reality is there to your business experience? Can you really help people? Now they can relate to you. They love you. You're fantastic, but can you really help them? Mm-hmm. And where's the school for that? So we created, at Success, we went ahead and did right off the bat, we were like, we're going to change the industry. And we brought in top coaches from every company and every industry and brought them together and said, we're going to build a coaching company that's never existed before. And we're going to change the industry. If you want to help, this is the place to do it. We're going to mastermind. You're going to get the same information we're going to get. We're all going to walk away and do whatever we do with it. We're going to build the biggest and greatest, coaching company in the world. And I believe that with the certifications we built and some of the things we've got planned, we will do that. But here's where it goes wrong. We're able to sit in our homes, in our jams and our bunny slippers and coach and make money, and we don't have to take it seriously. And I believe the real missing ingredient is the responsibility to the client who has a life at stake, who's putting their future in your hands and saying, help me. And we have no way to do it because we don't have the skills to do it. And it's almost as bad as in the real estate space. We are the fiduciaries for our clients. And we have to hold that as a responsibility. And in coaching, we are the fiduciaries. There's no law that says that. There's no rule that says that. But I'm telling you, we are the fiduciaries. We have a responsibility to those people. So I think, Alex,
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. So, I have very few coaches that hold me accountable and really take it seriously. There's a lot of, I don't get how you can how I show up to a coaching call and it's like, did you do your homework? Did you do what you said you're going to do? Oh, you didn't do it. Okay. Well, what are you going to put in place? La, la, la. Versus like, like really get to the source of why it didn't happen. Really, what structures you're going to put in place? How is this not going to get repeated? You know, I mean, I go to the gym and the trainer is not going to let me get up until my muscles are like defeated. But in the coaching world, we're allowed to get onto the next coaching call, like hopping on my next coaching call, like it's all okay. When the coach knows he's taking a stand for me and my family, my kids, I'm building something for my family generationally, and it's like this is a big deal. But I'm being irresponsible if I don't take my homework seriously. But I agree with you that a coach's duty to the client is like, you got to take this stuff seriously.
Yeah.
You can't just let me go. That's why I hired you, not to let me go.
I'll tell you one.
Mario's amazing at this, by the way. Mario is like on the ball with this.
I like his questions. I mean, I can see and that's what coaches do. We ask questions that you can help yourself come to conclusions that are your conclusions for your life, right? That's really what it is, not just me telling you stuff. I talked to a guy who was 35 years in the business. He goes, I coach my people all the time. I'm like, do you coach them or do you teach them? Sounds like you're teaching them. Coaching is very different. But I'll tell you the other thing that I thought was so important about what we did, and that is we took on the role of whole life, whole person coaching, meaning in many coaching organizations, you're not allowed to talk about the human side. It's all about, are you making the calls? Are you doing the numbers? Are you, it's like, are you doing the accountability stuff instead of what's going on inside that stops you from doing that? And can we have that whole picture conversation about what's the inspiration, what's the motivation, what's important to you about your relationship with God? I mean, all of that becomes part of the human, because I know this, when it sucks to be me at home, my business, I'm sucking over there too. And when I'm sucking at the office, trust me, it ain't good at home, right? It's hard to just, because we say, I'm good at compartmentalizing. Well, that's great, but it's one human being. So figure out how that happens, right? So we took on that role of being whole person. And I think it's made, the feedback we're getting is like, this is unlike any experience I've ever had. So we love that. It's for me, it's where my heart is. And we feel honored to be able to do that. And for me, it's like a mission to change the industry, because there is no licensing. We have some form of being able to say, we're going to lash out at you. You can hate us, or you can join us, and let's elevate the world of coaching, which is going to elevate the world of business, and people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Don. This was totally an explosive conversation. I think definitely would love to have you back again, because there was so much more we could have discussed. So if you'd be willing, we'd like to have you again in the near future.
That'd be great. I'd love that, guys. I was thinking that I never shut up. Maybe they never want to have me back, but no, I would love to. You guys are killing. What you guys are doing is such an important thing, because you are helping people at a very granular level figure out what's the next steps to making life better and getting more business. And anybody who's doing that, man, we want to join forces, join hands. We're not going to hold hands with you, but you guys are good looking, but I'm not going to do that. But we are going to just march forward and really get in lockstep with you. And anything I have in my power that I can do for you guys, just ask, and I will make sure it happens. And, I want to be calling on you guys. Let's figure out how to make the world better.
Would love to hear if you have any recommendations. Who would you like us to have next, or who do we just recommend to have as our guest on our next episode of our podcast?
Okay. I might have a couple names for you.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Don.
What a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.